Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Tom.
Hi, I'm Stephanie.
And today we're going to continue talking about lying flat. This is a concept that came from China, 躺平, as you say in Chinese, and we don't really have this term in English. Lie flat here is just a translation of that term. So, yeah, when I was preparing for today's lesson and yesterday's lesson, of course, I had to figure out exactly what this means to lie flat. You can kind of guess. Lying flat means you're kind of taking it easy and you're not going to get too uptight about things. You're going to probably take some time off work or something like that. So I guess that is kind of what it means, kind of withdrawing from the rat race and not being part of the rat race again for finding a great job and making a lot of money and stuff like that and working really hard. People just want to chill out.
Yeah, if you're in the rat race, you're always concerned about working harder, getting noticed by the boss so that you can get a promotion. But as a lot of people have discovered over the last, I would say, decade, you can be promoted and you don't necessarily get more money. You get more work, more responsibility, more stress. You go home and your boss is still texting you and calling you and emailing you. And they expect you to constantly be tied into what's going on at work. You know, and a lot of people have families. They need to be focusing in on their kids, on what their kids need, their spouses, you know, how to have a happy family life. But if you're always worried about work, you might end up destroying your family. So I think a lot of people are saying enough. We don't get much out of this. All we get handed is more work to do. So why should I care? So this writer, Luo Huazhong, he wrote an article about just lying flat. And he said lying flat is justice. And it really struck a chord. It was something that a lot of the Chinese youth could relate to. A lot of kids wrote about it on these forums that they can chat with each other about life. And so it's kind of gotten popular. It's spread, you could say. Today we're going to be focusing more on other East Asia countries like Japan and South Korea. But first, guys, we're going to read through today's lesson.
It's not only in China that lying flat has emerged as a social concern. This phenomenon can be seen with young people all across East Asia. In South Korea, young adults have been wrestling with overwork and financial struggles for years. The term sampo, meaning giving up 3, was coined in 2011 to describe young Koreans who are giving up on dating, marriage, and having kids. This term has since been upgraded to oppo, giving up 5, and ultimately enpo, giving up to the nth degree, reflecting exhaustion with the expectations of modern life. Just as in China, housing prices have skyrocketed and steady employment has been difficult to find. Social and gender issues are also at the heart of this giving up philosophy. Young women observed how their mothers couldn't have kids without forsaking their professional lives, so they prefer not to get married or have children at all. In Japan, where work pressure has been a problem for many years, the term for young people experiencing this kind of social fatigue is Satori Seidai, the enlightened generation, or more cynically, resignation generation. Different from Japan's hikikomori, who shut themselves entirely away, those who identify as Satori Seidai participate in society but have no desire for material luxuries. This baffles their elders, who grew up in a thriving consumer culture. Satori youth also feel pessimistic about their future opportunities, as they believe most of Japan's resources will be spent tending to the country's large elderly population rather than advancing younger people's prospects. Whether it's the ruthless 996 culture, gender-related social pressure, or housing prices making home ownership out of reach, East Asia's young people have many reasons to want to lie flat. It will take substantial change to make these exhausted youth believe that they have other options available to them.
Okay, guys, let's dive in. It's day 2 of our trend unit with no relief in sight. East Asia's youth lie flat. Now, in today's program, we're going to be focusing not so much on China, where this phrase originated, but we're going to be moving across East Asia. We're going to take a look at South Korea first. So it says here it's not only in China that lying flat has emerged as a social concern, a social problem, things that people are worried about. It's being described as a phenomenon that can be seen with young people all across East Asia. Phenomenon is one of those weird words. It just means something that's happening. It could be a fact. It could be a situation that you can see. You can observe it, but it's usually something that people are not quite sure about its cause. They can't really explain what's going on. Maybe its cause is unknown. Its explanation is not quite clear. So we slap this word phenomenon on it sometimes when we're talking about trends or social or scientific phenomenons that are just starting to be understood. So it's a trend that can be seen with young people all across East Asia.
Yep, it's singular phenomenon, something that happens, and it's happening to people all over East Asia, especially young people. Now, let's go to South Korea. There, young adults have been wrestling with overwork and financial struggles for years. So in South Korea, this is nothing new. Young adults there, people in their late teens, in their 20s, and maybe their 30s, they've been wrestling with this problem for a long time. If you wrestle with something, that means you're struggling with this question. You don't know the correct answer to it. It causes you a lot of pressure, and you talk to people about it all the time. What should I do? I just don't know what I should do. I'm working too much. I might get sick or something like that. I haven't had a break in 2 years. And so they've been wrestling with overwork and also with financial struggles. I don't have enough money to pay my rent. What am I going to do? I might have to move. My girlfriend broke up with me because I'm not making enough money. So they're struggling with these various things, or they're wrestling with overwork and financial struggles.
Wrestling, of course, is also the name of an actual sport, right? If you wrestle with someone, there are two guys or girls that are trying to toss each other and throw each other down to the mat and hold them down on the ground, typically to a count that the ref ends up counting like 1, 2, 3, and you want to pin them to the mat. Here, though, we're using it to talk about, as Tom said, really struggling with something. Now, there's the term sampo, which means giving up 3. And this term was actually invented or coined back in 2011. If you coin a phrase, coin a term, it just means you're coming up with this term and you're giving it a meaning. So you kind of originate this term. It has nothing to do with money. Just to coin a phrase just means you're the one who came up with this way of talking about a particular phenomenon. So you're inventing or devising a word or phrase. So they came up with it a long time ago, a decade ago, and it was to describe young Koreans who are giving up on dating. They're not dating anymore. They don't want to get married, and they've given up on having kids. They've just kind of decided to be single the rest of their lives, not have any responsibilities. Now, I want to say life can get tough and we can get really busy, but I also think this is a very selfish choice to make, too.
In a sense, you'd have to talk to these people to come to some conclusions there. But again, this is a term in Korea called sampo, giving up 3 things. And those 3 things specifically are dating, marriage, and having kids. And this term has since been upgraded to Oppo, giving up 5. So I guess O means 5 in Korean. And ultimately, in the end, Npo, which means giving up to the nth degree. Here, N just represents a number that is unspecified. It's just supposed to be a really high number, so they're basically giving up a lot of things, as many things as they can.
So, yeah, giving up 5, and ultimately, Npo, giving up to the nth degree. Doing something to the nth degree means you're doing it to the max. You're doing it to the utmost. You can't go further than that. So maybe you have been assigned a report for class and you want to get a really good grade. So you're going to work to the nth degree to make sure your paper is perfect. You want to get a great score. So you do something to the nth degree. Here, of course, we're giving up to the nth degree. So they're just getting rid of everything. They're giving up on everything, reflecting exhaustion with the expectations of modern life. I know that some people definitely have a family that they grew up in with a tiger mom syndrome where they're pressured into doing so much, and it finally drives the kids to rebel. And once they leave home, they just ditch everything. Ditch means to give up everything. I've seen that happen too. I had a friend in New York City. She was Taiwanese, but she grew up in America. Her mom and dad were tiger parents. And she just got tired of all the expectations and quit Harvard.
Oh, no.
And then just got a job that she was happy doing. So sometimes you can be pushed too much. If you're exhausted, just means you're so tired you have no energy left to do anything. And that can really make you sick. So I understand getting to this point where you just want to give up on everything.
But you can imagine the family arguments that are going on right now in Korea as parents are saying, you ungrateful kids, look at all the sacrifices we made for you.
It's true.
And you're just working at a convenience store or something like that. So indeed.
Or you want to be a chef. There's a famous chef out there who is South Korean, and he had this kind of pressure. And he was going to be a doctor. His parents were so upset at him, and now he's a very famous chef on TV.
Imagine if you don't end up a famous chef, though. Your parents are probably still going to disown you, and they won't want to talk to you. So you can imagine that this is causing all sorts of problems in Korea, in China, in Japan, and maybe even here in good old Taiwan. And that brings us about to the midway point in today's lesson. So let's take a break now and listen to our Chinese teacher and continue to talk about the situation in South Korea and in Japan.
Hello everyone, 我是派老师。今天讲解的是3月份 Unit7 第2天的课程。近年来，中国年轻人因为经济压力大，对未来看不到希望，认为再怎么努力也追不上高房价，干脆躺平。不过，年轻世代的无力感和绝望这个现象，并不仅限于中国，邻近国家日本、南韩也都有。我们希望在台湾，大家还是可以看得到努力能够获得相对的收获。好，我们现在一起站起来，不要躺平，看看学习的重点吧。请同学看到第一段 It's not only in China that lying flat has emerged as a social concern 这个句子。请同学注意，这里其实是分裂句型，要特别呢强调出不是只有在中国，not only in China。如果不是强调句型，而是一般句型的话，原本应该是 lying flat has emerged as a social concern not only in China. Lying flat has emerged as a social concern not only in China. 这样子的社会议题躺平这样的社会议题，其实并不是只有在中国出现。好，再来，请看到第2个句子有一个动词片语，请注意 wrestling with。其实呢，它就是很困难的、很辛苦的要去面对问题。再来，请看到第3个句子 The term sampo, meaning giving up three, was coined in 2011. 请同学特别把 the term 和 was coined 画起来。我们说新造出什么样子的词，动词呢就是用 coined, be coined， 意思就是这个词语呢被造了出来。好，接着看到第4个句子。第4个句子在逗点之后 reflecting exhaustion with the expectations of modern life。这边想要说的就是这个词语它反映出什么样的现象？那我们的动词呢，就是用 reflecting 反映出什么样的现象？
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back, guys. We're on day 2 of our trend unit. We're talking about lying flat. Lying flat is a term that came up by a writer in China, Luo Huazhong. He wrote about lying flat as justice. He kind of got tired of all the pressures and the expectations on his age group. I would say early 20s to early 30s. That's when you get a lot of pressure and you're still trying to make your mark on society. You want to get promoted and get that executive position. And you're just working your brains out. You're so tired. And he wrote an article about just kind of quitting the whole thing, quitting the rat race, getting out of the expectations of having kids, buying a house, having a prestigious job. He just said, who cares? I just want to enjoy life.
Right, and so we've been talking about the situation in Korea. They came up with the term sampo, giving up 3 things. Eventually it became oppo, give up 5 things. And now it's the nth degree, giving up all sorts of things. And just as in China, housing prices have skyrocketed and steady employment has been difficult to find. If something skyrockets, it goes up and up and up, just like a rocket or just like a skyrocket. And usually this term is used to talk about prices. Prices have skyrocketed as a result of inflation. And of course, they can't really find steady jobs as well. Social and gender issues are also at the heart of this giving up philosophy. So social issues, things having to do with society, and gender issues, which have to do with men and women and how things are handled according to your gender. And, of course, at the heart of this, we've got this giving up philosophy. Now, philosophy, of course, is a way of thinking. It's usually used for intellectuals, like philosophers, like Greek philosophers, Socrates and Aristotle, and Chinese philosophers like Lao Tzu and Mengzi and Kongzi and stuff like that. That's all part of philosophy, and the person would be called a philosopher. But this is just kind of like a way of thinking in regard to this particular phenomenon.
Now, young women observed how their mothers couldn't have kids without forsaking their professional lives. So they prefer not to get married or have children at all. If you forsake something, you give it up, you abandon it, you move on, you renounce it, you do without. It's usually a word we use when we're writing rather than just having informal, casual chats with our friends. Forsake. You'll often see it in the scriptures like the Bible or in very formal writing. Again, it's more a literary word than something we use in casual conversations. But it's something you should definitely know the definition of. To forsake just means to give up. Usually you're forsaking something that you value or that you want. It's kind of a sacrifice to forsake it. So some of these women who had children, at least their mother's generation, they had to give up their careers. I don't think that's the case so much in the U.S. at least, but it's very, very hard to have a really important job and also be a good mother. Sometimes you have to pick one or the other.
And I understand macho culture is kind of strong in Korea as well. Women work hard all day, but their husbands still expect the wives to make them a nice meal and take care of the kids and stuff like that. So that, of course, would make it a difficult decision for women to get married.
Yeah, you have to share the household chores, guys.
Yeah, that seems to be reasonable, of course. And let's turn our focus now to Japan. So in Japan, where work pressure has been a problem for many years, the term for young people experiencing this kind of social fatigue is called Satori Sedai, which is called the enlightened generation, or more cynically, resignation generation. So Satori Sedai, I couldn't find the Japanese terms for that. I found the hiragana, but we'll just go with the term here, Satori Sedai. But for all intents and purposes, our definition is going to be the enlightened generation, the generation of people that know something that the older generation doesn't.
So what is fatigue? Fatigue is extreme tiredness. Usually, fatigue results from working long hours at your job. It can be mental, it can be physical. It could be that you have an illness that makes you tired. So part of the symptoms of a particular disease would be fatigue or exhaustion. Of course, this is a noun. Be careful not to use it as a verb. But yeah, social fatigue is what these young people are experiencing. Now, we're calling them enlightened. If you're enlightened, you seem to have some knowledge about what's going on. You can see for yourself with your own eyes what's going on. You're not in the dark. You're enlightened. You have some wisdom. But sometimes we're calling this generation, more cynically, we're calling them the resignation generation. They're just quitting on everything. Now, if you are cynical, it just means you believe the worst of people. You don't trust that they're doing things for a good motive. You think they're motivated probably by self-interest or by their own ego or vanity instead of doing things for the right reason. So you might think, well, it could be because they're enlightened and they want to enjoy life better or more fully than our parents, their parents did, but they're probably just quitters. So if you're cynical, you don't see them as enlightened, you just see them as being quitters and not wanting to work hard at life and being unambitious.
Yeah, if you're cynical, you're kind of bitter, you're kind of negative, and so they're being referred to as the generation of quitters, basically, the resignation generation.
Yeah.
And different from Japan's hikikomori, who shut themselves entirely away, those who identify as Satori Sedai participate in society but have no desire for material luxuries. So this is another term from Japan, hikikomori. They just stay home and they don't go out and they play video games and stuff like that. So yeah, they don't want to get a good job. They're not really too concerned about getting material luxuries, having a nice house and an expensive car. All those things mean nothing to them. And this baffles their elders who grew up in a thriving consumer culture. If you're baffled, you just don't understand why are these kids thinking this way. When we grow up, we knew we had to work hard and we tried to get these things, and these kids just don't have the same values. What's going on? We just don't understand.
Now, Satori youth also feel pessimistic or without hope. If you're pessimistic, you're very negative about the future. They believe most of Japan's resources will be spent tending to the country's large elderly population. You know that Japan is facing a lot of senior citizens right now, and there aren't enough young people to take care of them. So they think, hey, why should I work hard? Japan's using up all our resources on these old people, so by the time I come around, we won't have anything. And they're really not focused at all on advancing or encouraging or supporting younger people's prospects. Your prospects are possibilities of some future event occurring. Prospects could be a better job or maybe meeting somebody. But if you have really good prospects, it means your chances or opportunities for success or wealth are good.
And the situation is similar here in Taiwan, but moving on to the final paragraph here, it says, whether it's the ruthless 996 culture, gender-related social pressure, or housing prices making home ownership out of reach, East Asia's young people have many reasons to want to lie flat. So again, we've got problems with working hard and long hours and having gender-related pressure. Prices for homes are really sky high. No one can afford a new house. Well, because of these things, the young people in East Asia here have lots of reasons to want to lie flat, either not to work or to find other kinds of jobs that are less exhausting. It will take substantial change to make these exhausted youth believe that they have other options available to them. So if something's substantial, it has substance, it's real, it is important, it's not just a concept.
Yeah, it has considerable importance. So it will take a substantial amount of money to buy a home in Taiwan in the future. Even now, it's pretty difficult. Now, if exhausted is the adjective form of this word exhaustion, which means extreme tiredness, if you remember. So exhausted youth, very, very tired youth. They need a lot more hope than they're getting from society currently. So we're going to have to see some big changes, substantial changes, in order to get these youth to get reinactivated or get rejuvenated towards their future.
Well, maybe in about 30 or 40 years' time, all those old people will die out and society will change as a result. But who's got time to wait 3 or 4 decades for that to happen? Okay, that brings us to the end of our explanation for today. Let's listen once again to our Chinese teacher.
好，接着呢，请同学看到第一段的第5个句子 Just as in China, housing prices have skyrocketed. 请同学先把 just as 画起来。这里呢 just as 就是正如同在中国 housing prices have skyrocketed. 我们都会说房价飙升，英文要怎么说才能够表现出那种狂飙，价格狂飙呢？就用 skyrocket 这个动词 housing prices have skyrocketed. 接着请同学看到Young women observed how their mothers couldn't have kids without forsaking their professional lives. 如果同学去查 forsake 可能会查到遗弃的意思，但是呢，在这里 forsake 就是放弃。那很多的妈妈有了小孩以后呢，就不得不放弃自己原本的职业生活。好，那接着我们请看到第2段。第2段，请同学特别注意到，在第1个句子里面有所谓的 social fatigue 是社会倦怠。那再来呢，请看到第2个句子，这里有讲到简居族的日文单字，而后请同学看到逗点之后的 who shut themselves entirely away 自我封锁，怎么说呢？ shut themselves entirely away 请同学特别注意。再接着下来，请同学特别注意到看第4个句子Sadori youth also feel pessimistic about their future opportunities, as they believe most of Japan's resources will be spent tending to the country's largest elderly population rather than advancing younger people's prospects. 请同学注意，这个句子呢有几个重点。首先，第一个是 tending to 这个动词片语，其实就是照顾照料的意思。很多日本年轻人会觉得说，反正资源都是花在老年人身上，要去照顾他们，所以 tending to 就是照顾照料。再来，请看到最后 prospects 这个字 ，prospects 其实就是发展的前景。那 advance 呢是促进、提升的意思。好，再接着，请看到第3段。第3段 ，whether it's the ruthless 996 culture, gender-related social pressure, 一直到整个句子后面是 lie flat 这边，请同学注意 ruthless 是无情、残酷的意思，而最开头讲到 whether 就是不论是 A 或者是 B， 不论是无情残酷的996文化，或者呢是房价，这个房价怎么样呢？房价很高，所以 make ownership out of reach， 高房价让买房遥不可及。同学可以把 out of reach 画起来，就伸手碰不到。那我们可以把它解释为高房价让买房遥不可及。以上就是我们针对第2天课程所做的中文讲解，谢谢大家。
That's it for today. Thank you so much for joining us. We are eternally grateful for your presence, and we hope that you can stay with us for many, many years. From all of us here at English Digest, my name is Tom.
And I'm Stephanie.
Goodbye.
See ya.